Lata, could you unmute your mic, please, Lata?
It is our collective and individual responsibility to preserve and tend to the world in which we all live. The earth is what we all have in common. Good evening and a very warm welcome to the Inspirational Lecture Series organized by the Office of Public Relations and the Department of Economics. I'd like to welcome each one of you and hope you all enjoy this evening and have a lot to take back from our esteemed speaker for the day, Dr. Vandana Shiva, environmental activist and a food sovereignty advocate. Tell me and I forget. Teach me and I may remember. Involve me and I learn. This is the integrated education one receives at St. Joseph's College, which focuses on freedom of inquiry, freedom of discussion, and freedom of teaching. We will now have an introduction video to introduce St. Joseph's College to you all. Thank you.
Welcome to St. Joseph's College. This is a 137-year-old college. Currently, the college is home to over 6,000 students at undergraduate and master's as well as research level. The college is also home to a diversity of cultures from all over the country, from northeast, south, east, west, central, all over the country. Besides, of course, a good number of students coming from across the border and overseas.
Jesuits run a lot of universities across the world. St. Joseph's College, Bangalore has studied a lot of university structures in the country as well as some of the leading universities in the world.
Thank you. Leadership is the art of giving people a platform for spreading ideas that work. One such leader, very successful, innovative, and a visionary, is Professor Kiran Jeevan, the PRO of the college and also professor at the Department of Social Work. He is also the brain behind the Inspirational Lecture Series. I'd like to invite him to introduce the Inspirational Lecture Series to us.
Good evening. The Inspirational Lecture Series was envisioned by the PRO's office to showcase students' stories of peace and justice, of commitment, of struggle, and of joy. We are living in difficult times, and all we need today are stories that could inspire us and strengthen us. And that is the reason why the PRO's office has envisioned this project of the Inspirational Lecture Series. A warm welcome to all of you.
Thank you, Professor Kiran, and we like to wish you all the best for all the plans ahead. If your actions create a legacy that inspires others to dream more, do more, become more, and what you do has far greatest impact than what you say, you truly are an inspiration. We have the most inspirational speaker for today to begin the Inspirational Lecture Series, a true inspiration to the world, Dr. Vandana Shiva. I call upon the HOD of Economics, Professor Anita Narona, to introduce our speaker for the day and invite her to address the gathering.
Thank you, Professor Lata. It gives me immense pleasure this evening to introduce my esteemed speaker, Dr. Vandana Shiva. Dr. Vandana Shiva is an Indian scholar, environmental activist, food sovereignty advocate, and anti-globalization author. Based in Delhi, she has authored more than 20 books. Dr. Shiva is one of the leaders and board members of the International Forum on Globalization and a figure of the anti-globalization movement. She is a member of the scientific committee of the Foundation Ideas, which is Spain's Socialist Party's think tank. She is also a member of the International Organization for a Participatory Society. She has received the Right Livelihood Award in 1993, an award established by the Swedish-German philanthropist Jakob Born, and it is regarded as an alternative Nobel Prize. Dr. Vandana Shiva has written and spoken extensively about advances in the fields of agriculture and food, intellectual property rights, biodiversity, biotechnology, bioethics, and genetic engineering are among the fields where Dr. Shiva has fought through activist campaigns. She has assisted grassroots organizations of the Green Movement in Africa, Asia, Latin America, Ireland, Switzerland, and Austria with opposition to advances in agricultural development via genetic engineering. Ma'am, it is such a great pleasure to have you this evening with us for the first inspirational lecture series. Thank you immensely for taking time off your busy schedule. And on behalf of the rector, Father Principal, the registrar, the PR office, and the Department of Economics, I welcome you and invite you to deliver the lecture. Over to you, ma'am.
My greetings to all of you in Bangalore at St. Joseph's. And when I was looking at that video, my mind was going back to 79, when I used to be in the Indian Institute of Management at Bangalore, which had its offices in the St. Joseph's building on Langford Road. So that stone building is a very familiar place for me. And Dr. N.S. Ramaswamy, who's no more, called the Cart Man, is the one with whom I worked. And he had created a science and technology policy division. Now, I was very keen to understand why it was that if we're always taught that science removes poverty, we have the third biggest scientific community of the world, and yet we have the largest number of extremely poor people and the most extreme hunger and malnutrition in the world. And how did it hang together? I remember very clearly my days in Bangalore. We managed to create a social involvement program for the students. And I used to bring them to my home, the Garhwali Malya, where I had been a volunteer as a student with the Chipko movement. And the students used to come to visit Chipko, to visit the leaders, to visit Sundarlal Bahuguna, visit Silyara Ashram. And in 81, of course, we got a logging ban. I left in 82 to come back to my home in Dehradun and start the Research Foundation for Science, Technology and Ecology. And it's very interesting, because of the lockdown, I am back in my childhood home. My mother gifted me her cowshed when I was thinking of doing work for the earth and for community. And we had done a short study which had stopped the mining in Doon Valley. And I said, if a 6-month study can save an entire valley, if I dedicate my entire life to the protection of the earth and acting in service of communities for justice and peace, so much more I do in my life. And so mother said, don't even hesitate, take the cowshed. So the little office I'm sitting in was my mother's cowshed. Behind me is an Einstein I sculpted in the short break I had between finishing my MSc honors in particle physics from the University of Punjab and before taking on a PhD, initially in India, and then I went to Canada to do a PhD in the foundations of quantum theory. And between Chipko and my PhD, I learned very, very early the lessons of non-separation and non-separability. The lessons that everything has a potential, nothing is fixed. The lesson of uncertainty and indeterminism. And most importantly, the lesson that there is no excluded middle. There is no either or. There is no, if you're not like me, you're my enemy to be exterminated. In the quantum world, that doesn't exist. In our ecological civilization, where we say, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, thinking that someone is close to me and someone is distant, someone is above me and someone is less, this is not India's civilization. And when I talk about earth democracy, I am basically bringing to contemporary articulation this ancient concept, not just empty words, but a lived reality to address the multiple emergencies that we are living through. We're all living through a continued semi-lockdown. COVID has totally shut down the world. Climate havoc, look at the floods of Karnataka this year. Karnataka is a rain-fed, semi-arid tract. Those regions are not supposed to be flooded. The Western Ghats have the best clothing of rainforests. And the Chipko movement was taken by my young colleague at that time, Pandurang Hegde of Sirsi, and he started the Apiko movement, the Chipko of the South. And we stopped dams and we stopped mining. And as long as the forests are there on the mountains, whether it's the Himalaya or it's the Western Ghats, we are protected because we get heavy monsoon. If they're forests, monsoons are a gift. If the forests have gone, the monsoons are a curse. My Chipko sisters, who'd never, ever been to school, knew at a time where the scientists were totally ignorant. They knew that the forest destruction was leading to floods, was leading to droughts, was leading to landslides. And they said, we're going to come out and hug the trees. You'll have to kill us before you kill the trees. That's what the word Chipko means. So my life started with Chipko as a volunteer while I was still a student in the early 70s when it started. And the idea of non-separation was reinforced that, in typical reductionist, mechanistic, predatory science, a forest is a timber mine. And all you measure is the extraction you can take. And in those early days, I used to do a lot of writings on the forest question. And there were forestry experts who used to say, everything else in the forest is clearly weeds. It's only the commercial timber. And I remember in Bangalore, while I was with the Indian Institute of Management in the old building, which is your St. Joseph's College, I was very puzzled by the fact that around Bangalore, the farms were being overtaken by eucalyptus cultivation. And I said, why are people planting eucalyptus? We did a big study, 13% of the land was now planted by eucalyptus. Did a little more work and found out there was an institution called the World Bank. I didn't know there was a World Bank. I'd been busy with physics. And I always say, I found the World Bank, this giant institution, the biggest bank in the world, hiding behind a eucalyptus tree. It had given a loan called social forestry. Now, social forestry was the word we created through Chipko, that forests should be for the earth, ecological, and they should be for society. And they took this word and said, now not only have we destroyed the forest by growing monocultures, we will now destroy the farms by growing eucalyptus rather than ragi. So we did this big study of IM and my love for ragi of Mandua, my love for the Pongamia, the Honge, my knowledge then began then. And there used to be a very, very important retired UN FAO official who had come to IM Bangalore to give a talk. And I'll never forget this, because he gave a talk on the different kind of Buddhas that Karnataka and Mysore used to have. He talked about 60 kind of Buddhas. So I realized the forests have diversity, our fields have diversity, but India's foods have so much diversity. And this is the diversity that holds us come together, that holds the earth together. And it's the assault on this diversity that is at the root of the pandemic, it's at the root of climate change, it's at the root of extinction, and it's the root of social breakdown and polarization of society. Let me take each one of these aspects one at a time. How diversity holds the earth and society together, and the assault on diversity destroys the fabric of the earth, and it destroys the fabric of society. So why do we have the pandemic? I wrote a piece literally the day I had to rush back when the lockdown was announced, flights were being cancelled, and I didn't want to be stuck in Europe. So I rushed back, and on the flight back, I wrote my essay. You can find this essay on the Navdanya website. I welcome you all to visit this website. I welcome the students particularly to look at the Earth University pages. So you can start applying for courses. Physically come to Dehradun when you can, but meantime, sign up for the Zoom courses. And if you can't be present at the time of the course, we will record it for you and play it for you. So do go to the Earth University website. You can also write to the earthuniversity@navdanya.net email. All the details will be on the website. But I also have a blog on life, on Jivan. And so I wrote this piece on reflections on the coronavirus. And I realized we are one planet and one health. And when we destroy the planet, we destroy our health. So of the 300 new infectious diseases that don't have a prior history in humanity, all created in the last 30 years of globalization. So I was introduced, because that's what the Wikipedia page about me, which is manufactured by young people who are paid to try and fabricate my personal, they remove everything significant and leave a few sentences. So I'm defined as an anti-globalization activist. No, I'm a lover of life and defender of life. And it's because the rules of free trade are an assault on life, and they're an assault on freedom, that I've questioned them. The first free trade agreement was written by the East India Company to basically get an uneven playing field and take over India, 1716. For the students who are interested in economics and the students who are interested in history, go look for the Farooq Sheer Farman with the Right Honorable East India Company. 500 rupees bribe, and they got free trade, empire over India. 1995 was when WTO was established, but it started as GATT in the late 70s. And this is a very important story to tell you. So I was invited to a meeting on the new biotechnologies. I'm talking of 1987. I'd done a book on the Green Revolution because Punjab, the state where I'd done my MSc honors in physics, when it was very peaceful in the 70s, was now erupting in violence in 84. The Golden Temple had to have the army sent. This November, Indira Gandhi was assassinated. That same year, the Bhopal tragedy happened. And I was working then on a United Nations program on peace and global transformation on a particular part of it called conflicts over resources. Those were the days when we were creating our PICO and we were helping the Narmada movement grow. All this was part of the participatory action research I had designed. And when Punjab erupted in 84, I wrote to the United Nations University in Tokyo. I said, something serious is going on here, and I would like to study it. And they gave me permission. And that book called The Violence of the Green Revolution, which is available in India from Natraj Publishers, was published with a gap because, writing on Punjab also became a problem at that time. But UNU published it initially. And I realized then that Punjab's agriculture was destroyed for chemicals. Punjab used to grow 250 crop varieties, species. And then it was growing rice in one season and wheat in one season. And then the entire system was created so that everyone had to get that rice and wheat. And now the recent laws, up to which I'll come back, what I call farm bills, but I would call them food acts, are basically saying, okay, we enslave the farmers, now let's dismantle it and hand it over to the corporations. So having done that book, I was invited to this meeting in Geneva in Bougie on the new biotechnologies called Laws of Life. And this is where I first heard about GATT and free trade and the companies wanting to have an international trade agreement to own the seed. These were the same companies that had brought us Bhopal, same companies that had worked for Hitler as IG Farben to create chemicals to kill people in concentration camps. And now they were saying, we will own life. We will do genetic engineering to take patents and own life, and we'll force this on the world. And by the end of the meeting, I was initially scared. I said, when 5 companies, and they said, we'll be 5. I said, when 5 companies control all life on Earth, what kind of a world is it? That's when I started to write about bio-imperialism, biopolitics, and started to save seeds, and started the Navdanya movement to save seeds. 3 things I said at the meeting, but it stayed with me. I said, but you don't invent life. Life is part of the flow of creation. It's part of the flow of evolution. It's not a machine. How can you say you can have a patent on it? Because a patent is taken on an invention, and this is not an invention. So I questioned them there, but I came back to India, started Navdanya. I said, no matter what happens, I'm going to save seeds. And I started to create community seed banks. And we've created 150 community seed banks across India. One of the early ones I started, I said Bangalore because I was still coming back to Bangalore after the initial stages of leaving. The second thing I said is, I'm going to go to Geneva and work with my embassy to make sure that the trade-related intellectual property rights agreement of GATT does not have a forcing of patenting, which is Monsanto's intention. As they wrote, we were the patient, physician, and diagnostician all in one. We defined a problem, and the problem they defined was farmers have seeds and farmers save seeds. And the diagnostics was it should be made a crime for farmers to save seeds. And as doctors, they said, let's have intellectual property rights on seed. So I started to go to Geneva, and we had a wonderful ambassador, S.P. Shukla. And I started to talk to him. And I said, you've got to have an exemption. And he worked to bring, an exclusion that countries can exclude from patentability, plants and animals from patentability, and he put a sui generis option. As a result of which, there are 2 laws that we were able to shape in this country. Very important laws that will be a gift to you all of the future generations. The first is the law on patents. Article 3J of the patent law in India clearly says, plants, animals, and seeds are not human inventions. Therefore, they are not patentable. And even though Monsanto did try and claim ownership, I remember I've been back to Bangalore 2 or 3 times to fight cases on Monsanto's lies. And we had their case dismissed when they wanted to assert ownership to collect royalties. The second law, very important law, Article 39 of the Plant Varieties Protection and Farmers' Rights Act. Now, in those days, we had ministers and parliamentarians who really used to listen and used to read papers and figure out. So Chaturanand Mishra, the minister, called me and said, my government officials are telling me we have to have the plant variety law to hand over monopolies to the international seed industry. But you keep saying no. I said, because we've got sui generis system in TRIPS, we can make another law. And I had made a draft law. And I said, farmers are the first breeders in India. At that time, 80% of the seed was in farmers' hands. So we can write laws. And he invited me with Shuklaji to write the law, in which Article 39 says, farmers' right to save, exchange, breed, improve, sell seed can never be alienated. So last year, Pepsi sued 4 farmers, 3 crores, for saving potato seeds. Because, Pepsi chips make sick and give you diabetes. Please, I beg of you, stop using those products. Not good for you, not good for the planet. All the trash is because of packaged food. You can be a big player for protection of your health and the protection of the planet. I sent the book I have, it's called Origin, and it's my 35 years of work on biodiversity, including intellectual property rights, including every case I ever fought on biopiracy, the biopiracy of neem, the biopiracy of basmati, the biopiracy of wheat. It's documented every law of this land, and it's documented every international law of which I've been a part of. Origin, the plunder, corporate plunder of nature and culture. It is really, if you want to understand what's happening in the world, read that book, order that book. So I sent this book to the lawyers who shared it with the judges, and Pepsi's case could not go through. They had to withdraw it. If we didn't have Article 39 of the Farmers' Rights Act, Pepsi would be suing farmers left, right, and center. But coming back to the issue of the health of the planet, our health being one. So globalization has created a food system that is very, very wasteful. I learned this in my study of the Green Revolution, but I have done this work now since 1984, 36 years of deep study. I've written about 10 books just on food and agriculture. And this wasteful system produces less food, produces bad food, and invades into the forest. It's an invasive system to grow monocultures of a few commodities at very high cost. Uproot the farmers, destroy the soil, destroy the water, destroy the biodiversity, destroy the climate, and destroy your health. So why are these 300 new infectious diseases being created? Because humanity, under globalization and limitless greed, and not knowing when to stop, is invading into forest ecosystems. Invasion into forest ecosystems means that viruses that are part of, that are safe, are part of the biome and virome of animals in the forest, now start becoming infections for the human being. There's a case in Karnataka, and it's very thoroughly studied. It's called the monkey disease. That everywhere where this Kodigu disease comes up is around where deforestation has happened. And it jumps from monkeys to human beings. Ebola, HIV, SARS, Nile virus, all deforestation viruses. The cause is our attack on nature. The symptom is the virus. The symptom is not a symptom is not the cause. The virus is a result of human greed and irresponsibility. Now the UN has recognized that everyone in the pandemic is looking at symptoms, when we should be looking at the cause, which is our relationship with the earth, which is respect for nature, which is leaving the homes of indigenous people and animals for them. How can a tiny elite try and want the last forest, the last drop of water, the last inch of land, and snatch it from other beings, snatch it from other farmers, snatch it from tribals and indigenous people? So the pandemic is very much a part of an ecological crisis. And my essay, One Planet, One Health, goes into the depth of it. But it also went into the depth that people it's not that you get an infection, you die. You get an infection, if your immunity is strong, nothing happens to you. You get an infection, but you've been eating that horrible Pepsi, junk chips, and drinking Pepsi and Coke, then you have a very vulnerable body. You have a metabolic disorder. You have diabetes. If you have diabetes, the risk of dying is 9.2%. If toxics in the food have given you cancer, the risks of your dying are 7.6%. Whereas the normal mortality risk is 0.5 to 1% with corona. So first, this globalized food system attacks the forest, but it also attacks your bodies. So all disease, avoidable disease, is because of a globalized industrial food system based on chemicals. Climate change. I have a book called Soil Not Oil. 2009, I was going to Copenhagen for the climate summit, and I realized that while our work in India was showing that not only is chemicals a source of emissions, but we could see that organic farming and biodiversity is the solution. So I decided to write this book, Soil Not Oil. Also available in India. I think Soil Not Oil is available from Women Unlimited. I'll be very happy later to have a list of the books sent, though you will be able to remember it from this talk. So at that point, I had come to the conclusion it's about 45% of greenhouse gas emissions come from an industrial system of food production. The figures are about 12 to 18% because of the way food is produced. The fossil fuels, the giant tractors, the combine harvesters, huge fossil fuel use, but all chemicals of agriculture are fossil fuel based. 1 kilogram of urea uses 2 liters of diesel. It's a fossil fuel system. And then it emits a nitrous oxide that goes into the atmosphere, which is 300 times more damaging for the climate than carbon dioxide. Then you have what is called land use change. But this is the invasion into the forests. All of Indonesian forests for palm oil. Amazon is being totally destroyed for soya bean. That is responsible for up to 18% of emissions. And then when you take, if I grow a good carrot in my garden and I eat it, fine. Or if I had put, when I was in Bangalore, I used to live in Basangudi, and I remember those tiny little shops where we used to buy, coffee for just that week. The bread for just that day. And if you were late, the bread was so fresh, they'd run out. And the lovely mixtures and fresh chips. They gave employment to women. They gave us health. Lay's chips have to have bad oil, lots of fat, lots and lots of salt, lots and lots of preservatives. These are not edible products. They are recipes for sickness. That package, that horrible aluminium in which every chips packet comes from mining for bauxite. I have worked with lots of tribals, including Niamgiri, who wanted to stop the Niamgiri mining of bauxite by Vedanta. But every packet of chips, just think of it. When you eat a packet of chips, think of the farmer who grew the potato who's being sued by Pepsi. When you eat a potato chip, think of the women's groups who made good chips, who lost their employment. When you eat a packet of chips, think of the tribals who lost their home for that bauxite. When you eat a packet of chips, think of your health and your body and give it respect. Our body is supposed to be a sacred body. And here we are destroying our health. And this processing and packaging and long distance transport, add it all, it's 20% of greenhouse gases. And then when you cultivate uniformity in the field and you create long distance systems, you have 4% food waste, from which comes methane. Add it all up, we are talking about 50% greenhouse gases, 75% water destruction, 75% devastation of soil. You all should become very active, because when I worked on the eucalyptus project for the IIM Bangalore, we realized one of the reasons it was spreading is Mr. Devraj Ars had created an amazing land reform law. And that's why all the land holdings of Karnataka are small land holdings. There's been an attempt to change that land law and push it into large 200-acre, 500-acre farms, which will spray Roundup, have giant combine harvesters. The fragile soils of the Deccan cannot handle the violence of the agriculture that is the kind of practice in the United States and in America. That's not agriculture. It's a continuation of war. And because I had worked on the Green Revolution, when the GATT and WTO started and all of this, I started to travel the country and visit tribals, visit farmers, to tell them about these intellectual property rights laws. There was a Dunkel draft text, which we used to call DDT. The text had been leaked. So with this text, I would travel the country. And I remember coming to Karnataka and training the Karnataka Raj Sangha. And then we organized, 92 we organized rallies, 93 we organized rallies. 93 we organized a 500,000 people rally in Cubbon Park, where I brought leaders of agriculture movements from around the world. And we said agriculture and food is too important for the life of the planet and our life and health and the livelihoods of farmers to be left to free trade, to be controlled by 5 trading giants, 5 chemical giants, 5 food processing giants, and now I would add 2 e-commerce giants, the Walmarts and the Amazons. If you leave food to their hands, they're going to give you junk. They're going to destroy our farmers. And this is the context of globalization, which I critiqued. We stopped WTO in Seattle. We shut it down. And in fact, since then, WTO has been, as they say, in intensive care. The Director General has left to join Pepsi. That's how unregulated the world trade is. Now, at this time, we have a pandemic. We know during the pandemic, only local food systems supported people. During the pandemic, long-distance supply chains collapsed. Why would India want to enter a failed system at a time of vulnerability? So, in 91, the World Bank had tried to impose a structural adjustment on India. My study then showed that 1/3 of the $90 billion debt was for Green Revolution, chemicals, dams, irrigation, etc. And now they wanted us to change agriculture. They wanted to remove Essential Commodities Act. They wanted to undo land reform and keep land in the hands of small peasants. And interestingly, all my research and all FAO research is showing small farms produce more food. And 80% of the food, according to the UN FAO, comes from small farms. These large farms don't feed anybody. They produce biofuel and animal feed. They wanted to remove the stock holding that is in the APMCs, the mandis, have a limit to how much a trader can hold. The mandis, quite contrary to the media propaganda, are not trader-driven. The mandis are cooperative. Look at the Karnataka APMC Act. The committee of the mandi has farmers cooperatives, and traders groups. I remember in Bangalore itself, there's so many farmers' markets run by these committees and these cooperatives. They wanted to remove regulation of prices. They wanted to get rid of every regulatory process. Now, because we've had an active parliament, we had very, very active democracy, we managed to stop most of those things. The only things that wasn't stopped was policy decisions on import and export, because those are executive decisions. But anything that needed a change in law, we stopped it. What we stopped from 91 to 2020 was passed with the 3 acts that have just been passed during the pandemic. One act is a removal of food from the Essential Commodities Act. And I can tell you what happens. When price of food is not right, you get riots. What is called the Arab Spring were bread riots. They were just called the Arab Spring, but people were fighting for bread because food had become a speculative commodity, and where governments were not controlling the price, it was going beyond people's reach. As I mentioned, the APMCs were designed to make sure farmers didn't get exploited and the country had affordable food. This is what supports the entire PDS system, the entire FCI system. If 1.3 billion people are eating today, it's because of that regulatory system. That gets dismantled. And this gets dismantled at a time where more and more giant corporations are entering the food system. The third that is introduced is a contract farming law with an unscientific assumption that small farms are not viable. Small farms are the only economically viable system. And I want to read out to you what our, a former our Prime Minister, Chaudhry Charan Singh, who was both a farmer and an economist, had said. He said, if I have 100 acres and I'm, as a Prime Minister, I will give those 100 acres to 10 farmers because those 10 farmers will grow much more food for me. I will never let 100 acres be in the hand of one farmer. The former Prime Minister, agricultural economist, practicing farmer. All of my research in the last 36 years shows smaller the farm, the more it produces in nutrition per acre, not yield per acre. Yield is nutritionally empty commodities. It produces more because it has an ingredient that large farms cannot bring. Large farms can bring more chemicals. Large farms can bring more fossil fuels. Large farms can bring more violence. Large farms cannot bring care and love. It's the small farm that is a farm of care. And so I work very, very closely with the process of the Laudato Si. And I was to have gone in March for a conference for young people on the economy of St. Francis. St. Francis had said, only in giving you receive. This is the economy of the law of return. This is the economy of the gift. And on the small farm, you can practice this economy. I give some organic matter to the soil gives me more food. The soil creates soil organisms. I grow more crops in my field with love and care and intensity. I have more food. The butterflies have more food. The pollinators have more food, and they give me more food. The web of life is a food web. The care for life is care through food. And care through food means we must care for the earth. It means we must care for our farmers and realize that each of us as a consumer has a responsibility to join the movement of small farmers to defend their livelihoods. And finally, you have to care for your health and your bodies. Food is where it all begins. We have a book called Anna, where food as health. The top public health experts, the top Ayurvedic people of this country and the Navdanya team have written this. We grow biodiversity. And our research is showing the more biodiversity you have, the more food you have, the more nutrition you have, the more butterflies you have, the more soil organisms you have, the happier people you have, the more prosperous farmers you have. Our farmers are earning 10 times more. The contract farming is justified on doubling farm incomes. Doesn't tell you whether it'll be net income or gross. It'll be gross, not net. Net will be negative, negative, negative. Our farmers' net income 10 times more because they have their own seed, they have their own ecological inputs, they are sovereign in their market through relationships without either the small middlemen or the giant middlemen, which are the big companies. You are entering this world in this period of multiple emergencies. You can either think, oh my God, what do I do about it? I'm helpless. Or look around you and say, where is it that I get hope? Where can I join a movement for the protection of creation, the sowing the seeds of justice and peace? How can I, with my special place in life, be part of a new earth democracy where the earth thrives, our freedom thrives, and all beings are happy and well? Thank you.
Ma'am, you truly set the path for our lecture series by your delivering the first lecture, just by being an inspiration to us, by walking the talk, and all your engagements in society with protecting our Mother Earth. How diversity holds the earth and society, and how the assault on diversity destroys the fabric, and how we all need to begin to respect nature. And you also set a very hopeful call to all our students to be part of such movements. And I think that is important when we begin to question and we begin to take a stand. So thank you for that, ma'am. And I'm sure you are an inspiration to many and will continue to be in a long time. And surely your talk has awakened the minds and spirits of all those who are present here today. And definitely they have a lot of questions. I now hand over to moderate the question and answer session to Dr. Padmaja Pancharatnam and Professor Teresa Joy from the Department of Economics. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for your inspiring lecture. And it's been an honor to listen to you. Let's begin with the first question. What do you think are the key challenges for India going forward with regard to establishing food security while also ensuring our food sovereignty?
Well, food sovereignty is the only way to ensure food security. Yeah? Food sovereignty means you are self-reliant, you are atmanirbhar in deciding what you'll grow, how you'll grow it, and how it will be distributed. That is true atmanirbharta. That is self-reliance. In 1942, we had the last Bengal famine. Utsa Patnaik has done amazing work. She wrote a book called Republic of Hunger, but she's done a new book in an economic volume. I'm just looking for it. And she has worked out that during British rule, $45 trillion were transferred from India, from the peasants who were left in such poverty that they were driven to famine and 60 million people died. So British got 45 trillion, Indian peasants paid for it through their very lives. We had lost food sovereignty then. The first essays Gandhi wrote in one of his first speeches after independence was, we have to become self-reliant in food. And he said, we are a nation that's rich in soils, rich in rivers, rich in knowledge. Ecological agriculture, organic farming had all gone to India. There's a book called An Agricultural Testament, which is called the Bible of Modern Organic Farming. 1905, the British sent their specialist here to improve Indian agriculture and set up the Pusa Institute. He says the soils are fertile. There are no pests damaging the crops. I have to make the Indian peasant and the pest my professor on how to do good farming. And his book, The Agricultural Testament, is how to do good farming, which is a documentation of how we did farming. So Gandhi put all this together and said there's no reason why we should have hunger and famine. So food sovereignty is the basis of food security. Now, neoliberalism, same year, 91 is when Narasimha Rao, Rajiv was assassinated during election campaigning in Tamil Nadu. And then Narasimha Rao became the prime minister. But during campaigning, Narasimha Rao gave a speech in Karnataka. I remember this so clearly. He said, food security is not food in your godowns, but dollars in your pockets. And I remember the women of Dharwad telling him, but we don't have pockets, we wear saris. And we don't have dollars, we have rupees. Now, this idea of food security, that you sell what you grow and you buy what you need, is economically dysfunctional. I've done a study, again in Karnataka. We were told by the World Bank, stop growing grain. Same bank that said grow wheat and rice in Punjab now said don't grow grain. Grow flowers for export, grow vegetables for export, grow meat for export, and have shrimp for export. That is their recipe. So they financed industrial aquaculture along the coast, devastated the coast. They actually financed the export of beef. India became the biggest beef exporting nation because of World Bank recipes. I did a study on floriculture in Karnataka. One farm took the water of 5 villages. And then we did an economic calculation. The flowers exported, how much could you buy for its value? you could only buy 25% of the food you would have grown if you'd used the land and water to grow food in India. So food security is not food sovereignty. Food sovereignty is having a seed sovereignty, beet swaraj we call it, having your own food, your indigenous crops. I would like the St. Joseph's community to join me in a big program and movement to, Navdanya has worked to bring the millets back. 33 years ago, I started to save millets. We call them forgotten foods. These are future foods. This is food sovereignty. Let me come back to biodiversity. Not only diversity good for the earth, not only is diversity good for society, diversity is the only way to fight totalitarianism and total control over the economy.
Thank you, ma'am. This question I forgot to mention was asked by Sanjay Balan from St. Joseph's College. Now we'll move on to another question from Dr. Maulya from Manipal University. In the process of development, tribes have been evacuated and shifted to areas for a better living. What does this mean? Do you think it means development?
So, I would suggest to all of you to read a book we wrote. Ivan Illich, some of you might have heard him, but many might have forgotten who he was. Amazing thinker. In fact, originally he was a Jesuit priest. Ivan had a group around him, and we wrote a development dictionary edited by Wolfgang Sachs, and I have an essay on it in resources. And as we've written in this development dictionary, the word development is a biological term. Each of you, as an adult, is a developed version of the fetus that was in your mother's womb. The fetus becoming an adult is development. I sow a seed, it becomes a plant. That's development. Development is self-organized generation from within, structurally consistent, but constantly changing. What is called economic development is externally imposed. It is money making money. World Bank gives $1 and generates $3 of business for the companies for whom it gets the contracts. This is extraction. It is not development. So when I've done so many studies now on the World Bank, they forced Maharashtra to grow sugarcane in an arid zone, in a rain shadow zone. Maharashtra has a water famine now. They said, we will not give you a loan for water, for wells, unless you grow sugarcane and stop your jowar and bajra and your native crops, which are water prudent. So they give money to make money. But in the process, displacement takes place. They give money to make dams. They give money for mines. Displacement is not development. Displacement is uprooting by violence. It is violent. So we need to bring development back to its ecological and biological meaning and describe economics in honest terms. When extraction is happening, we should call it extraction. When giving is happening, we should talk about it as the economy of giving. Living circular economies, I call it. I think most people don't realize that economics is a child of colonialism. Yeah. East India Company defined commerce, and then it defined the disciplines of commerce, and this became economics. So we are teaching economics on the basis of what is good for the colonizer, not what is good for the earth or for communities. It needs a big revisit, and for those of you who are part of the St. Joseph's community, I would suggest read Laudato Si, because I was part of the team that was called to the Vatican to do the chapters on redefining the global economy, overcoming the economics of indifference. Amazing thinking, it tells you exactly how wrong our thinking is. And we should not, my new book called Oneness versus 1% is about how we have taken illusions and constructs that have been imposed by powerful people and made them natural. That women are inferior, blacks are inferior, people are poor because they deserve to be poor. The rich are rich because they are meritorious. I think all of these have to be revisited both from the deep ecological civilization that India is, from the amazing different traditions, and the best of ecological science that teaches you that life is self-organization and evolution.
Thank you, ma'am. And we'd like to end with a final question on what are your current projects right now? That's asked by Madhumita Ravindra, a student from SJC. And also, a lot of people are interested in knowing what inspires you to have chosen the fields that you have and what motivates you.
What is the third bit?
What motivates you?
Oh, what motivates me? Okay. Let me begin from the end. What motivates me is love. Love for the earth, love for creation, love for people around me, love for humanity at large. That's what motivates me. And why do I choose the fields in which I work? When I see harm, when I see injustice. I like the old Chipko movement where they say, we're going to hug the trees, you'll have to kill us before you kill the trees. My life has been throwing myself into a field with my love to say you will not cause harm. So when I saw what happened in Bhopal and Punjab in '84, I threw myself to agriculture and said, no, I'll cultivate a non-violent, compassionate farming. And that's what I've done since '84. When I saw the Monsanto say we'll own life, patent life, take away farmers' seeds, take away farmers' rights, I threw myself to saving seeds. Now I'm seeing all of the billionaires, all the tech barons, they've made so much money. In America, they've transferred 50 trillion. If the British transferred 45 trillion from India to England, the billionaires of America have transferred 50 trillion from the people to themselves. During the lockdown, Jeff Bezos made $67 billion additional dollars by making everyone dependent on home delivery. I really do request, if you care for justice, do not order, unless it's absolutely unavoidable, please do not order your groceries. Go to the markets. Bangalore has such beautiful markets. Please do not make Amazon and Walmart your grocers. So when I see injustice and violence, I throw myself in, and I don't choose a field. I protect earth and I protect people. And out of this a field grows. It's like my life has been an organic outcome of the defense of the earth and the defense of people. What are my current projects? I don't work on projects as projects. It's a continuity. We are in a very strange situation. Not only do we have a pandemic, laws are changing by the day. And I've been helping farmers have their own seed sovereignty, food sovereignty, but I realize we now have to create living economies. And this is a very deep part of my work now. How to go away from the extractive system that takes from the earth, the soil, and society to an economy of giving and giving back, so that wealth is distributed in society and food is the place to begin. Another very important part of our current work is the Earth University. I mentioned it at the beginning. Do go to the navdanya.org website, look at Earth University, read my blogs, and I would suggest many of you students who want to join, till the travel is allowed, join by Zoom. Eventually, when the travel is, when it's possible physically, we would love to get groups of St. Joseph's to the Earth University, to the Beach Vidyapith, where nature is the teacher. It's an amazing biodiversity garden. We've saved thousands of varieties of crops, 750 varieties of rice, 250 varieties of wheat, and you learn then. You learn from nature as a teacher. You learn from biodiversity as a teacher. So let's think of a long-term partnership. My 70s were spent in the St. Joseph's building as I am Bangalore. I would love for the students of that college to start coming to Navdanya when physically it's possible, but look for the courses, sign up for the courses, and volunteer.
Ma'am, we'd also like to hear your views on the recent farm bills. What do you think about them?
I actually mentioned them in my talk. I mentioned how the 1991 structural adjustment of the World Bank Yeah. At that point, I'd written this book, Globalization of Agriculture, Food Security and Sustainability. Yeah. This, I think, these are not available. They're out of print. But I wrote this to analyze the World Bank recipes. Yeah. And this is what the World Bank had suggested at that time. Yeah.
Okay.
Liberalize imports, remove land ceiling, remove support to farmers, deregulate wheat and rice, dismantle the food security system, remove controls on markets, abolish the Essential Commodities Act, and remove inventory controls. So the acts are 3, but it is the structural adjustment package of the World Bank of 1991.
Okay.
And if for those who don't know what the 3 are, let me just share it with you. The 3 bills are the Essential Commodities Act Amendment Ordinance, which removes food from regulation of price, and this is not related to farmers. This is related to consumers. As you'll notice, the price of food is already increasing, yeah? I predict the food price will go so high, people will starve in this country. Your food bills will get more. The Essential Commodities Act is allow corporations to increase the price of staple food. Because the Essential Commodities Act regulates the price. Yeah? Removing that regulation means companies can charge what they want. First, they'll take control, then they'll increase the prices. The second is the Farming Produce Trade and Commerce Promotion and Facilitation Ordinance, which is the dismantling of the system of mandis. Why is this wrong? The mandis pay taxes. That's rural development. They build the roads, they build schools. The mandi taxes are a very big rural development fund. Now, you've allowed companies to not pay and set up markets where they want to. If they don't pay taxes, they already have cheaper produce. So they already have a tax advantage, right? And given the monopoly they have and given the support they get, they will create giant structures. There's already one being created in Moga in Punjab. And the third is what's called the Farmers Empowerment Protection Agreement on Price Assurance and Farm Service. I would just call it corporate slavery. I would just call this one on contract farming the corporate slavery law, because Indian farmers are autonomous. It's not by accident that we farmed for 10,000 years. It's not by accident we got rid of zamindari and created small farm systems again to be food sovereign. This is a zamindari law. And I must mention that, Montek Singh had given a talk, and I have written about this in my book, Making Peace with the Earth. Montek Singh in Dubai had said, it's very difficult to touch land in India. But I would suggest if you want large land holdings, sign contracts, and then you'll get 5,000 farmers' land to operate as if it's one land holding. So that's why, and the farmers are smart. They know, they say, we'll be slaves on our own land in contract farming. Yeah. So if you want to understand the 3 laws, I would say one is read my publications and books. Mm-hmm. I have a book called Who Really Feeds the World. There's a lot in there, Making Peace with the Earth. There's a lot in there, my Green Revolution book. But look at American agriculture and the harm it's done. And look at the brilliance of Indian farming. I want each of you, whether you're faculty or your students, commit yourself to the defense of Indian food, which is healthier for you through any scientific analysis, and commit yourself to defending the small farms and the food sovereignty of India. This is the freedom movement of our times.
Thank you, ma'am. It was really engaging and inspirational to talk to you. We're very grateful to have listened to you for so long. We'd now like to end the session with the vote of thanks. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Padmaja, for moderating the session. Learn to be thankful for what you already have while you pursue all that you want. I'd like to call upon Professor Kiran Jeevan to bring us the vote of thanks.
Good evening. Ma'am, thank you so much for this excellent lecture, and thank you so much for taking time off and for joining us for this first inspirational lecture series. We really appreciate you joining us this evening, and we promise you that we will join your movement and take a pledge to save our world and our community. We received 137 questions. Unfortunately, because of lack of time, we're not able to ask every question. And we also this evening had 513 people join us both on Zoom and on YouTube. Thank you very much, ma'am, for your lecture.
My greetings to all of you, and let's make sure we protect creation, we protect the earth, we protect this beautiful land. And agriculture is the road to its protection. And therefore, we must resist this Americanization of food and agriculture. And they're going to bring a big fraud called fake food from the lab. Oh, there's no food, let's eat fake food. You know, Bill Gates has 14 patents on Impossible Burger. So real food, real people, real farms, and in India in resurgence. That is true Atmanirbharta. We must each commit ourselves to making India truly Atmanirbhar. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I also this evening would like to thank the rector of St. Joseph's College. I also like to express my sincere gratitude to the principal, our registrar, the Department of Economics, Professor Anita Norona and her team, the PR office and our faculty team. And especially this evening, I want to thank all the student interns of the PR office for putting this entire webinar together. Thank you very much. And also the team from the Economics Department. I also like to thank Dr. Jayati Badra, the HOD of the Department of Big Data Analytics, for allowing us to use this lab. Thank you very much. Thank you all for joining us this evening. The feedback form is going to be in the description as soon as we finish this program. Thank you very much, and God bless all of you, and have a wonderful evening. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you. Oh, I need the video on.
Thank you, Kiran sir.
Thanks, Lata.
It was a good program.
Thank you, Lata. Thank you so much, Lata, for coordinating this, Lata.
Anytime. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks, Lata. Thank you so much, Lata. As you